In our next section, let's look at a negation. A negation just means the opposite of our statement. Don't read into it. So for example, let's say my statement P is my shoes are black. The negation, which we put a tilde in symbolic form, would be my shoes are not black. Seems pretty straightforward to me, but people get confused. It doesn't mean my shoes are blue. It doesn't mean my socks are black. It just means my shoes are not black. Now, when we put two statements together, we get a compound statement. So I'm going to take two statements that can be classified true or false. I'm going to put them together. A conjunction is and. And we can simplify, use symbols for and that's with that looks like an upside down V. It's a caret or a caret. So, for example, I would say, and then the only time an and statement is true is if they're both true. So both parts would have to be true for an and statement to be true. For example, I'll say my shoes are black and the sky is blue. This would only be true if both parts were true. If either one of them is false, you can say that statement's false. We'll take a look at an example here in a second. Okay, now, if we take a look at a disjunction is with an or. So one or the other. The only time, and we use a V for that, the only time a disjunction is false if they are both false. Okay? If one of them is true, that makes the whole statement true because it's or. So the first one, it's false unless they're both true. Disjunction is true unless they're both true. Now let's take a look at a couple examples here. P and R. I want to write this out. So P is, the figure is a trapezoid. And R says it has four congruent sides. You can use some pronouns in here to make it simpler. Now my first statement, the figure is a trapezoid. No, that's false, isn't it? Since it's an and statement, it doesn't matter what the second part is, doesn't it? The second part looks like it's true. It's false and true, which tells me that statement is false, isn't it? Because it's only true with and if they're both true. Now let's take a look at letter B. I'm going to say not P. So I'm going to write not in there. The figure is not a trapezoid. And Q would be the figure has four congruent sides. Oh, I put Q in there instead of R in the last one, didn't I? I better go back and fix that. Okay. Didn't pay attention to what was R. Okay. Highlight it instead of erasing it. Let's see. No, it didn't. Doesn't like to erase. There we go. So R is the figure has 4 right angles. Still get the same thing as far as the conclusion, because it does have 4 right angles. That part's true, but false and true make that whole thing false. Now, if I look here, the figure is not a trapezoid. That's true. It has 4 congruent sides. That's true. True and true tell us that statement is true. And there we have it. Now, a conditional statement is anything I can write in an if-then form. So if P, then Q is how I would write it. When I use symbols, if-then means arrows. You can use the word implies also. It doesn't have to be in the order, but that's usually how we write it. So, give you an example. If it rains, then the parade will be canceled. The hypothesis is going to be the part that follows the F. We don't write the word F. We just say, oh, it rains is my hypothesis. My conclusion is the part that goes with the then. The parade will be canceled. Okay. So in P implies Q, my Q is my conclusion.